Hello and welcome to this edition of World Today. I'm Geeta Mohan. Now, after months of war, Hamas has agreed to US proposal on Gaza ceasefire. Palestinian officials says Hamas has agreed to a proposal by US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff for a Gaza ceasefire. This could pave the way for a possible end to the war with Israel. The new proposal, which sees the release of 10 hostages and 70 days of truce, was received by Hamas through mediators. The proposal also sees the release of a number of Palestinian prisoners by Israel, including hundreds serving lengthy prison terms. There was no immediate comment from Israel, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at a special cabinet meeting on Monday said that Jerusalem will never be divided again. Listen in.
We never forget Jerusalem. Jerusalem, the bird of our soul, is the heart of the nation. If you remove the heart from the body will not exist. And therefore, we will not allow anyone to remove Jerusalem from our hands. Jerusalem, our eternal capital, was reunited 58 years ago in the 60-day war. It will never be divided again.
Earlier, US President Donald Trump did hint that a good news was coming on Sunday. While talking about Iran nuke deal, he mentioned a possible progress in Israel-Hamas war. Listen in to what Donald Trump had to say.
Likewise with Hamas on Gaza. We want to see if we can stop that. And Israel, we've been talking to them, and we want to see if we can stop that whole situation as quickly as possible. Likewise with Hamas on Gaza. We want to see if we can stop that. And Israel, we've been talking to them, and we want to see if we can stop that whole situation as quickly as possible.
The other big conflict, Russia-Ukraine war, that Donald Trump is working to bring to an end, is only leading to more frustration than concrete results. After Russia launched its biggest aerial attack in 3 years of war in several cities and villages of Ukraine, including Kiev, President Donald Trump called Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, crazy. Not only Putin, President Trump also hit out at the Ukrainian president for criticizing the US for its silence. Here's a report.
The US President Donald Trump, in a social media post, described his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin as crazy after Russia launched its largest aerial strike on Ukraine. Trump's change of tune from Putin being a friend to a strong and smart leader and now to being crazy make analysts wonder if he would be able to keep his campaign promise to end Russia-Ukraine war. While Russia and Ukraine completed exchange of 1,000 war prisoners following an agreement reached in Istanbul, Russia launched its largest aerial attack of its 3 years war with Ukraine, killing 12 people, including 3 children. And the American president got disappointed big time.
I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him. But he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
Kremlin tried to play it down while responding to President Trump, calling President Putin crazy on his Truth social media.
Of course, at the same time, this is a very crucial moment which is associated, of course, with the emotional overload of everyone, absolutely, and with emotional reactions. We follow this very closely.
Kremlin claims that Russia's proposal for a possible peace deal for the Ukraine war is ongoing and a draft has not yet been submitted. In this background, Russia targeted 30 Ukrainian cities and villages, including Kiev, with drone and missiles overnight on 25th May. Ukraine claims 367 drones and missiles fired by Russia killed 12 people, including 3 children. Russia claims that it has struck military targets in Ukraine in response to Kiev's recent strikes, reaching even Moscow.
разумеется, является об этом.
We see how the Ukrainians are striking our social infrastructure, peaceful infrastructure facilities. This is a retaliatory strike and a strike precisely at military facilities, at military targets.
Ответный удар.
The possibility of Trump and Putin meeting grows distant as the US president does not rule out sanctions to push Russia to toe its lines. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
And joining me from Washington, D.C. is foreign policy expert Michael Kugelman. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today. Now, President Trump has made very clear his frustration with both Russia and Ukraine. The fact that there has been no headway with regards to a ceasefire on the war front, and it's only intensifying, he's also called Putin crazy. Now, with Russia saying Vatican is not an option for talks, where are the ceasefire talks really headed?
Right. Well, I mean, President Trump has prioritized from day one of his administration getting some type of deal to try to end this war. I mean, he's made very clear that he sees himself as the ultimate peace broker, and he really wants to have made some progress. And I think that his recent comments about Putin were not only expressing frustration with Putin, but also expressing frustration with the pace of these efforts to try to get some type of deal. I think he likely thought that there would have been more progress by now. But I would say this, that what we've seen Russia do in recent days suggests just how difficult it will be to get to a process to begin some type of negotiation leading to a deal. Trump's comment, though, his very critical comments of Putin, I think will cause a bit of reassurance in Western capitals, which have been very concerned about what they perceive to be a position that the Trump administration has taken that has been disturbingly pro-Russia, or at least very critical position toward Ukraine.
Right, but Michael, Zelensky has also been insisting that there has to be some pressure on Putin. Now, with a change in position, that is just a slow and a slight shift. Do you think the US will now pay attention to what Zelensky is saying?
Right. I mean, I think that the comments that Trump made most recently about Putin, the very strikingly strong criticism of Putin, coupled with what he said about Zelensky, he's been very critical of Zelensky. I mean, these are, I think, in part a pressure tactic on the part of President Trump to try to get these two to reconsider the ways that they've been thinking about prosecuting this war. But clearly, to this point, it doesn't seem to have had much effect because clearly we're seeing escalating levels of hostilities once again, given these recent Russian acts.
Michael, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. With that, we'll shift focus to another big story that we've been tracking. India's Operation Sindoor global outreach against zero tolerance for terrorism is in full swing. All 7 delegations have now reached their designated cities. Congress MP Shashi Tharoor was in the United States of America, one of the most important diplomatic outreach programs and cities, Abhishek Banerjee in South Korea and Asaduddin Owaisi in Bahrain. Congress leader Shashi Tharoor made a fervent pitch reaching out to inform the USA about how India never wanted this warfare, but Pakistan has forced the country to respond like this. AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi called Pakistan an aggressor and not a victim, while TMC leader Abhishek Banerjee added the punch of rising Indian economy threatening Pakistan and forcing the neighbor nation to launch such attacks. Listen in.
I was extremely grateful for the warm welcome extended by the Prime Minister, who hosted us to dinner in this old sugar plantation right near where the Independence Day celebrations are taking place. We recognize it's a very busy time for the government of Guyana. They have, as you know, their big 59th Independence Day coming up. Their ceremonies are at night, culminating in a flag hoisting at midnight. That's their tradition. So we were very touched when the Prime Minister insisted we come for dinner beforehand, and many members of the cabinet were present. Finance Minister, Health Minister, Agriculture Minister, various other ministers were present. And we had some very good conversations. Members of the delegation talked to the other ministers. I mentioned, of course, the issue of terrorism.
बहुत अच्छी मीटिंग हुई. उसमें तमाम ग्रुप ने जो जय पांडा उसकी क़यादत कर रहे हैं, हमने भारत का पक्ष रखा हमने उनको बताया कि कितने बरसों से भारत में पाकिस्तान की तरफ से जो उनके एडेड प्रमोटेड ट्रेन टेररिस्ट आकर भारत में आतंक मचा रहे हैं और कितने लोगों की जानें गई, हमने पूरे डेटा उनको दिया। विक्टिम नहीं है पाकिस्तान, पाकिस्तान एग्रेसर है। और हमने 15 अप्रैल को जो आसिम मुनीर की स्पीच हुई, जिन्होंने कश्मीर के बारे में जो बात कही, उसके बारे में हमने बताया।
And news just coming in. This is news of Pakistan Premier in Iran expressing willingness to hold peace talks with India to resolve all issues. That's the breaking news coming in at this hour. Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has expressed his willingness to hold peace talks with India to resolve all issues including Kashmir, terrorism, water and trade. Sharif made those remarks in Tehran. He is in Iran as we speak and he arrived on the second leg of his four-nation tour. Before Iran, he was in Turkey. He flew from Turkey to the Iranian capital where President Masoud Pezeshkian received him at the Saadabad Palace. Sharif received a guard of honor and held talks with the president, and now reports coming in that he has hinted towards peace talks with India. India, on the other hand, has been very clear that talks and terror can't go together. Delegations after delegations in various world capitals exposing Pakistan even as Premier Shahbaz Sharif proposes peace. Deputy Editor, India Today Global, Pranay Upadhyay joins us for more on this. Pranay, big news coming in. Despite all the delegations and all the to and fro that we're seeing, the Pakistani Premier is now proposing peace talks with India.
Geeta, as you rightly mentioned, that India has already made it clear that talks and terror cannot go together. However, Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif might be extending or might be seen as extending the olive branch, that to be from the Iranian soil. But this cannot work for Pakistan and for India because it may be for optics. You would recall, Geeta, that not very long ago, Iran and Pakistan have launched military surgical strikes against each other. So what are the trust level between Iran and Pakistan is also evident that Iran is erecting wall on with along the border with Pakistan. So this is clearly maybe for the optics. Pakistan is Pakistan really sincere about this peace gesture? Had they been very sincere, they would not be harboring the terrorists. And as far as India's case is concerned, talks and terror cannot go together because after having gone through the entire process of the composite dialogue process, after having Lahore bus to various experiences of peace, gestures, what did India receive in return? All the terror attacks, and that's why India is compelled to say that talks and terror cannot go together unless Pakistan delivers credible and verifiable action against terrorism. However, Pakistan might be seen, might be making these right kind of noises for the international optics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Pranay. It's only for the international community, and that's the years they want. Paying attention to what Pakistani Premier is saying at this point in time. He's actually in Iran. He was actually in Turkey, arming Pakistan up against which country, might I add? Thank you so much, Pranay Upadhyay, for joining us here and sharing details of this breaking news that we just brought on Pakistani Premier now proposing peace talks with India. Now, even as India continues to roar post-Operation Sindoor and amid calls for boycott, Prime Minister of Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif, arrived in Tehran accompanied by a high-ranking delegation that we were just reporting, but also the delegation includes Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir. Before Iran, Pakistani delegation was in Turkey. Now, India today accessed intel revealing Pakistan's fresh weapons deals with China and Turkey. Pakistan is buying ground-based rocket launchers and 30 wing-long UAVs from China. A drone brigade backed by both nations is being formed for deployment in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. On the one hand, seeking all these weapons, and on the other hand, proposing peace or peace talks. Talks to renew a 2021 drone deal with Turkey are underway, with a high-level military meeting expected in July 2025. Meanwhile, Pakistan is also scrambling to gather international backing. Turkish President Erdogan met with Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif in Istanbul, aiming to boost bilateral cooperation. At the same time, Pakistan's army chief was in talks with Turkey's defense minister. The agenda? Strengthening defense ties, expanding economic cooperation, and exploring tourism development. But this isn't the first show of support from Turkey. During the India-Pakistan conflict, Turkey reportedly supplied nearly 400 drones to Pakistan, including Bayraktar TB2, Yeeha, and Songar units used in strikes on Indian military sites. Turkish military advisors were involved in planning all those operations, according to reports. And joining us for more on this is Kawal Sibal. Ambassador Sibal was former Foreign Secretary of India. Ambassador Sibal, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. Isn't it time now for the international community to really acknowledge that when it comes to terrorism, neutrality is not a position?
Look, there has been, on paper, a very wide international consensus on combating terrorism. Actually, if you look at the language that has been used in UNGA resolutions, G7 resolutions, G20 statements, our own bilateral statements with various countries, the language is the same, that no cause justifies recourse to terror, and that all countries should cooperate in combating this menace, etc., etc. The language is always very strong. So in terms of an international consensus on paper with regard to combating terrorism, there is already a great deal of consensus. So that's not the issue. Our issue is linking those general statements with Pakistan. Whether Pakistan is the epicenter of terror, whether Pakistan, the acknowledgement that Pakistan has a finger in virtually every major terrorist attack that has occurred not only in our region, but internationally, including against the United States. The fact that Osama bin Laden was sheltered in Pakistan for God knows how many years, etc., etc. Now that linkage is missing. And that linkage is very, very difficult to get because countries don't want to publicly take sides. And they attach some importance to their relationship with Pakistan for a variety of reasons. The Islamic countries have their own angle. The West has its own angle because the West has always mollycoddled and Pakistan, protected Pakistan against itself. It has armed Pakistan. It has ignored Pakistan's terror activities, though there has been some progress in that regard, that the language of cross-border terrorism has been accepted even by the United States. And many of the Pakistani-based terrorists are now inscribed on the UN list of international terrorists. So some progress has been made. But when it comes to India-Pakistan question per se, rooted in terror, somehow it gets mixed up in the Kashmir issue. And therefore, they feel that if they only took a position on terror, it will be giving one-sided advantage to India because in the background, there is this Kashmir issue which has been pending for a long time, which also explains the remarkable and surprising statements that have come from President Trump himself.
Ambassador Sibal, thank you so much for joining us here on the network, explaining exactly what the position has been on this issue. Now, what if we told you that Google's latest AI can turn your weirdest daydream into a Hollywood movie with sound effects and all? Buckle up, because this next story by Cyrus might just convince you that even AI can make movies now.
If you've been seeing some of these samples by BO3 online, I cannot tell you how mind-blowing these are. Now, what's happened is that Google has launched a new text-to-video creation tool using AI called BO3. Now, what it does is basically create realistic, very lifelike videos. But the crazy bit here is that it can now sync audio. So when you see different videos AI-based, they are usually without audio. But with BO3, you can synchronize actual audio with video. So you will not be able to tell which video is real and fake. Now, how this changes the game is the physics, the camera angles, the clarity, the resolution, everything looks very real with BO3, and that can completely change the way people create content. Now, Right now, Google has said that this tool is available in the US and 71 other countries. It will soon come to India. And also, it is available in the Gemini Ultra plan. So not all of the people have access, but imagine how content creation is going to change. We have some of the people posting videos that they have created using VO3 online. And if you see some of these samples, it is amazing the kind of visual clarity that this AI tool is able to generate. But again, content creation is changing dynamically, and AI tools like these are going to completely change. We look at content online. But yes, with AI, I think it's going to be a really crazy world.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of World Today. We leave you with some startling visuals of what happens behind curtains for world leaders. French President Emmanuel Macron made his first visit in Vietnam, seeking to boost influence and relations with its former colony. Within hours of his arrival in Hanoi, France and Vietnam signed $10 billion worth of contract. But what went viral is an off-guard moment caught on camera as the door of the French presidential jet opened upon its arrival in Hanoi. The French president is standing with his face towards right. A hand in a red outfit can be seen making contact with Macron's face, which moves up and to the left. Macron appeared startled but quickly recovered to wave through the door, realizing that the door was open. The person who pushed Macron remained hidden by the body of the plane. Moments later, Macron and his 72-year-old wife Brigitte, dressed in red, stepped out of the plane. The French president tried to offer his hand to his wife while they started to climb down the stairs. She seemed oblivious of the gesture and continued to climb down with her head down and her hair masking her expression. French media later reported, quoting sources, that it was a mere squabble and it was blown out of proportion. This is the first visit by any French president in Vietnam in past decade, and it would perhaps be remembered for this outrageous off-guard moment. Goodbye and take care.